You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Adler and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Howard Padilla, and this is episode 639, a Patreon exclusive where tonight we're going to be talking about a number of things that have popped up over the last 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks now that we haven't had a chance to talk about on the main show. This is the Waystation, so this is news, rumors, and I think today we may get into a little bit of spoilers because we had a number of toys that were announced and released both legally and not so legally. But I thought it'd be fun to kind of talk about some of those toys. And really, it's more focused around the toy. And I got some questions about whether or not we're going to see a renaissance, if you will, from the toys. But joining me with me, of course, is Chris. Chris, how you doing, man? Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, glad to be here as always. And I'm doing great tonight. And I'm ready to dig into this information.
Yeah, there's some good stuff here. Some bigger stuff here. But we'll get into that in just 1 second here. I want to say, first off, thank you to all of the Patreon members, especially everybody that's watching this, of course, and everyone that supports the show on Patreon. Even if you're a free member, I've been thinking about doing some additional stuff that will be exclusive to free members as well. So all you have to do is join Patreon. You don't necessarily need to pay anything. We'll see if that how that does, but I'm working on something right now, but more on that later. But I do want to call out our now part of the tribe members. This is Alex, Danny, Dante, Daz. I've got a Brad feeling, Jackson, Jacob, Josh, Mike Borda, Paisley, Reader Reborn, Sharkman Dan, and Uncle Leon. And then our highest tier, which is now this is Rod Racing, Steve and Rob. And quick shout out to Steve, who Chris and I had the pleasure of having dinner with on Friday of last week. We went down to San Marcos, had some good Tex-Mex food, hung around, just talked about Star Wars and music and movies. And I don't know, we were all over the place on that thing, but really good time. So Steve, hey, good to see you. And glad you guys made it home safely. Then also, don't forget, we've got the Adam Christopher interview coming up. So that'll be a Sunday show. We are going to record that. It won't be a live show since he's, kind of a big guy. So we don't make sure that, it's not live. It'll be recorded. We've got some questions that we want to ask him about Master of Evil, but really he's been talking to us about it. And he's like, well, we'll talk about Master of Evil, but then he really just wants to talk about Star Wars. So I have no idea where this is going to go. That guy has a wealth of knowledge. He's an old timer, I meant like old school original trilogy fan. So his heroes are like Luke, Leia, Han, that sort of thing. So it'll be a lot of fun to kind of pick his brain on whatever he wants to bring up. And then, we may go off into some tangents too. So we'll see. But anyways, we'll record that at 1 p.m. on Sunday. I'll try to get that out to Patreon members Sunday night. And then it'll be a public release that coming Tuesday. So I think that's March 3rd is when that will be out. So again, that's the Adam Christopher interview. That'll be Lauren and I will be doing that one. I know she's so excited to talk to Adam Christopher. It's like, we'll see how much she holds her fangirl stuff in. So I as well, like that guy he's a lot of fun to talk to. But okay. With that out of the way, let's get into all of our topics. So I thought we would, you'd put this in here. I know we were going to talk about this and then we were going to talk about the Mando and Grogu Super Bowl ad, and then the trailer came out. We've done a whole show on that now. Mm-hmm. How's that sitting for you, I guess, now that we've had it for a better part of like a week now, I guess?
Really, I mean, I'm still really happy with the trailer. I'm still excited. Every time I watch it, I get more excited for the release of this movie. Again, not only because it's the first Star Wars movie we've had in the theaters in years, and it's forged for IMAX. It's just, I keep picking up little things here and there, rewatching that trailer. And each time I find something, or I think, this may be that, or, they may be on this planet, it just raises my level of excitement. So each time I watch it, I just get more excited for this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Same thing. Like it's done really well. I've had a chance. I went out and did a show with Star Wars Reactions with Aaron last week. So I've had a chance to talk about it there. Some new things came up there that I hadn't considered yet, but yeah, every time I talk to people, they're still talking about it. It seems like it's generating buzz, and as time goes on, we'll get more and more of that. So it's off to a good start, even though it may have felt a little shaky for some initially. But the big one I want to talk about is one of the first things that's come up here that we haven't really had a chance to dive into, and that is Star Wars Racer. So I'm going to run the trailer on this in the background. I'm going to turn down the audio so you guys can't hear that. We don't need to hear it. But this game, for anybody that hasn't seen this, of course, This is the new racing game that's coming out later this year. This is by Fuse Games. So they did Burnout, Need for Speed. They've got that's their pedigree, right? Racing games. They've done other stuff too, and to their credit, those games have been successful. But this is where kind of they cut their teeth, and what they're really known for is racing games. So the idea of them coming into a Star Wars game like this bodes really well for a successful game. Not saying it's guaranteed, but it bodes really well. There was, as you can see here, we're actually seeing the gameplay of the game itself. So the first stuff that we got was kind of like CG stuff, intro stuff, but this is what the game looks like. And we're talking like 4K, 60 frames per second. This is actual gameplay that we're watching here, not like preloaded stuff or, CG stuff that was created for the game. That's the actual game right there. So it looks really, really impressive. And we'll get into the details here, but I guess first impressions, I don't know, where do you stand on Star Wars, like racing? Where do you stand on racing games in general? And when you see this, if you're not an avid gamer, is this something that you would go and, pick up?
So for myself, I'm not a real big racing fan. I think my racing game limit like starts and ends with like Mario Kart, right?
Yeah.
But seeing this for the first time and watching this trailer for this game over and over again, it gets me real excited. I did play Star Wars Racer back in the day. I believe it was for Nintendo 64. And I really enjoyed that game. I didn't own it, but I remember renting it from Blockbuster. Yeah, that shows you how old I am. But
right.
renting it from Blockbuster several times to play with my buddies, because you were able to play 4 at a time at that point. And just getting a kick out of it. So we really enjoyed playing that game. And seeing this game and seeing the locales and seeing how beautiful it looks, I'm totally excited to play this game. This is definitely something I'm going to pick up, even though I'm not a big racing game person.
Yeah, I mean, the visuals alone, this is like, it's next gen stuff in terms of like, what we've seen from Star Wars games, and it's got a lot more variance and variation, I should say, from past. We've only had like a couple of different racing games in the past. We had there's Ben Quadraneros. We'll talk about him in a second. But we had we had Episode 1 Racer that came out that was in the arcade. You remember the sit down version of it where it had like Anakin's pod racer?
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah, and I think there's a place in Austin here. I think a couple places actually. I say that there's a couple places in Austin that still have the original one that you can sit in still. The controls are all beat up, but it still runs and it plays. But anyways, we've had that. We've had Super Bombad Racing, which was more of a Mario Kart kind of take on racing games with Star Wars characters because they had the big bulby heads and that sort of thing. But this feels like a legitimate like racer, like next gen type racer. And they've done some really interesting things here. They're really trying to make this stand out from some of the stuff they've done in the past and some of the more, some of the more trends that we're seeing in racer games, which I'll get into in a second when we get to the IGN interview. But in terms, again, just visually, it looks amazing. There does seem to be a lot of story elements to this game. It's not just a racing game. Again, we'll talk about that more in a little bit as well. And then just the variation of the racers that we're seeing, the variations of the different planets that you race on, the tracks themselves. And then there's environmental changes that will happen as you race in this game. So, when you look at these visuals and you look at the IGN interview, which we're going to talk about here, it feels like this has got a lot going for it. It's not going to be a one-dimensional type game where, it's Episode 1 Racer, but just in 4K, 60 frames per second. There's a lot more here. It goes pretty deep, much more deeper than that.
Yeah, I agree with you there. The one thing that I like about this is that, whereas the other Star Wars racing games, you could tell that they kind of happen outside of if you want to say outside of the Star Wars universe. Yeah, it's in universe. You're racing pod racers versus other drivers who are known for, pod racing. But here it feels like, this is an actual event that is happening with the Star Wars universe happening around you. So it's like you mentioned, there's a lot of story elements to this game. And I think that's going to give it a notch above like the other Star Wars racing games, which were just like, just fun, but here this is fun, but also with some story. And you can actually envision this happening, in the Star Wars universe, kind of like, what we saw in Attack of the Clones when, Obi-Wan and Anakin go into that bar on Coruscant and you see the pod racing like on a screen there, This could be like, it feels to me like this could give you that feeling. So you're like, hey, this is happening around the time that other things in the Star Wars universe that we're familiar with are happening as well. So, and that makes it more fun.
Yeah, that's going to be for sure.
Mhm.
I'll keep running this in the background. I mean, we have the interview up. I can show you that, but I mean, it's just text, right? It's a pretty long, lengthy interview. So IGN had an exclusive. This interview was done with Matt Webster, who's the founder of Fuse, and also Kieran Crimmins, who's the creative director. Really gets into the nuts and bolts. And so it's a pretty thick and dense interview. So I try to pull out some of the bigger highlights, some things that we want to focus on. So number one, this is not an open world. And a lot of the games are going to open world, both in racing and MMOs and, adventure games, and everything's trying to go MMO or going open world. And the reason why is because, we've got the computing power now to do something like that. In years past, it was always challenging. So that seems like it could be a step back in the wrong direction, depending on your view of racing games. Like if all you do is play racing games, you've probably been aboard the trend of going more open world and benefiting from that. Most recent example, at least in my book, is Mario World, right? So our Super Mario Kart World. We picked that up on the PlayStation 2 or the Switch 2. And that is a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun to play. Like we all play it, and we enjoyed it and play 4-player and that sort of thing. And it is kind of cool to have an open world like that. But they are actually saying that they wanted to go back to more of a circuit, like a track race, because there's a high level of mastery that comes with this. And this is not new, right? I mean, this is something that we've always had with racers, is that over time, you think about Mario Kart, you begin to learn all the tricks and things about the track, right? And so there's a high level of mastery that you can achieve, and they're really shooting for that. They want people to feel rewarded for playing this game over and over again and learning all the nooks and crannies to navigate through, and all the environmental variables that can happen while you're racing. They want to reward people by that, by allowing them to become faster. How do you feel about that? Do you like the idea of having more of a traditional racetrack environment versus open world?
Well, I think open world racing really only works with certain concepts. And we talk about Super Mario Kart. I think that's one of the only concepts where, in my opinion, an open world racing game would work. For me, a game like this, I would want to keep it closed circuit and not, have it to where, you can hop off the track and then go and explore. I think if you have that option, it kind of detracts, in my opinion, from a game like this. It detracts from the fact that, hey, it's a racing game. Your job is to try to get to the finish line first, right?
Yep. Right.
I think for this type of game, the developers coming into it saying, hey, it's not going to be this big open world type of racing game. We're going to, just keep it down to the track itself, the circuit itself, and just have the players focus on trying to beat each other to the finish line. I think was a great idea. So in my opinion, I think it's a good move for Galactic Racer.
Yeah, I think so too. They also said that they've got a 2 boost system. So traditionally you have racer games have a boost, right? You hit a button and suddenly you go super fast for a certain period of time, whether that's, limited amount per vehicle per race, or power ups that you pick up, whatever the case is. This one, they've introduced a 2 boost system. So you've got your traditional boost like you would have any other video racing game, right? But then they've also got something called the Ramjet. And so the Ramjet allows you to go even faster. I think they're saying like 400 miles per hour, maybe even more, depending on, where you are. The cool thing about the difference here is when you ramjet, your engine heats up quicker. And so you can't use it too long. Otherwise, your ship will blow up. I mean, it literally says it'll explode if you go too far, too long. Now that sounds really cool, but the dynamic here is the environment itself. So if you're on Hoth, for example, you're able to use your ramjet a lot more because it's cold. So it doesn't heat up as fast. You have to be really careful if you're using your ramjet like on Jakku. Other planets that are kind of maybe more moderate temperature, there are moments where you might be going through water. And so when you're going through water, it would behoove you to use your ramjet during the water because it cools down the engines, and so you can use it longer and not run the risk of, it exploding. And then they've got this kind of stuff where they've got it hidden too, right? There's different areas on the map as you're going through the races where you might find an area where you can use your ramjet longer that, you would only know through playing multiple times and gaining experience and stuff. So that is kind of an interesting thing. Like I'm not a huge racer fan. Like I don't play a lot of racers, but it sounds innovative to me. And at least it's definitely innovative from a Star Wars perspective, because we really just haven't had, we've had a pretty one-dimensional list of racing games so far. But how do you feel about the the ramjet and the idea of incorporating that into the environment.
I think that's a good little twist because, like you said, most racing games, you have one, boost opportunity, that you have to acquire. And it's just, it's kind of like a one and done type of thing until you acquire it again. Here, the real intriguing part of it is that the ability to use it is going to depend on the locale that you're at, right? Like you mentioned, Hoth, Jakku, a planet with a more moderate climate that has water. The game is going to take that into effect and say, hey, you have these elemental, environment around you that could hinder or help you use that ramjet to give you an advantage. And you have to learn the nuances on, hey, if I'm on Hoth, I know that I can use my ramjet, X number of seconds versus if I'm on Jakku, I can only use it, half that time. Right. You have to become accustomed to that. And I think that little wrench in the game there for a power boost or speed boost, I should say, is a nice little trick and a nice touch on this game. So I'm looking forward to trying that. Yeah. But to have two opportunities to boost your speed in the game, I think that's going to make this game unique. So again, I'm just excited to try and play this. I'm definitely gonna pick this up day one. Even though I'm not a huge racing person, this just looks fun. So I'm ready to get my hands on it.
Yep. No, same. I definitely after the gameplay trailer and then certainly reading the IGN interview, like I'm in. I'll buy it. I got to try it. But they and this is I'm showing now the reveal trailer, which was a few months ago now at this point, but. They did mention a little bit. They talked a little bit about the locations. We know for a fact Hoth, Endor, Jakku, and Tatooine have all been confirmed. There's another planet that they mentioned. I didn't write it down. It sounds like some of these worlds are going to be secret as well. So like you'll have to unlock them or find a way to get access to them. They're kind of sketchy in terms of how you do that. But it sounds like there's a lot of different worlds. It's not just we're not going to be confined or landlocked to 4 or 5. It sounds like there's a lot more. They're just kind of pacing themselves and announcing and releasing. And they'll probably have others to share as bonuses or secrets as we get closer to that. Maybe the coolest part of this, though, for me, is this idea that there is a story behind this, right? So similar to what we got with Battlefield or Battlefront 2 came out, and Battlefront 2 was a great multiplayer game. Loved it. Played the crap out of it. We played it with we actually had a channel on Discord, a Discord channel where we played with Patreon members. So we jump on a Friday night, Saturday night, we play till like 2, 3 in the morning. It was a great time to play that game. I really enjoyed it. On top of that though, and it was a great first person shooter multiplayer game. But my opinion, one of the best things that came out of that game was the story with, right. What's her name? Dang it. She was on top of my tongue. But the single player game was awesome. Later on they had an expansion that came out. We got some of that as well. And this game seems like it's similar too. Like we're going to have a story element to the game. There will be, if you're not racing, there'll be moments where you can openly walk around in different areas. You can talk to other racers. There's, they didn't really get into a lot of the details, but there is a story element to it. It's not just, you play as this character named Shade. Their identity is secret. They're hidden. We don't know who that character. We don't know who that is under the mask. I would assume maybe there's a big reveal, like it's Boba Fett or I don't know, whoever. It's probably somebody. But we were walking around and doing things. And when you interact with these NPCs, it can change certain things. Like, again, they didn't really give a lot of specifics about it, but I love the idea that it's not just going to be, okay, once the race is done, you go back to the next screen, you pick the next race, you pick your car, you modify it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then you jump right back into it. There's some breakup there. There's a time to break that up. And then in that, some story elements are going to be developed. Iden Versio. Thank you. That just popped into my head. But Iden Versio was the character from Battlefront 2. So yeah, the story element seems kind of cool. On top of that, we've got a campaign mode, we've got a multiplayer mode, we've got an arcade mode. That's all pretty typical for racing games. Nothing really new there. And then, we've already gotten Ben Quadraneros, who was like all over the social media last week in a way that I hadn't seen in 20 years, right? People were posting about him. We've got Sebulba, of course. He's a little bit older. And then the last thing, and I'll get your thoughts on all this, is the timeline. So at the very end of the article, they asked them like, hey, so, a lot's been said about where this takes place in the timeline. We see the fallen Star Destroyers. We see Jakku. Sounds like this happens right after the fall of the Empire. Can you let us know? They were estimated about 5 ABY. They asked them, what do you think this falls in line? They're like, it doesn't really matter. I'm like, wait a minute, time out. It does matter. Like everything matters since Disney came in, right? I mean,
right, exactly.
That's all we've been, at least me personally. I can't speak for everybody, and I'm probably in the minority, but this is what we hyper focus on. Like, I need to know where this falls in the timeline because there are ramifications and things that are tied to it. And maybe it's just that this game, is such a standalone game that it really does not matter, right? The events don't matter because it's not going to have any significant impact on the storyline at large, or there are no ties to other characters, nothing like that. That may be the case. And if that's the case, true, that's fine. I get all that. I'd rather them just say that rather than going, it doesn't really matter where the timeline is. I don't think people are going to be focused. And I'm like, you don't know your audience in terms of like how much we want and know Star Wars. You may know racing games, but buddy, you're coming in this a little bit different. So anyways, thoughts on, I guess, all of that, meaning like the story mode, the character, what about Ben Quadraneros? And then how do you feel about not having a specific time in the timeline where the story takes place?
Well, Ben Quadraneros and Sebulba, that's just, if there was any question if I was going to pick up this game or not, when I saw those two, and then obviously with the gameplay, that's the most important part. But to see those two characters come out of episode 1 now, and they're back and they're doing what we saw them doing in episode 1, that's just it's a keeper. I mean, the rest of the game could probably just be but we get to see those two back, and that I'm excited for that too. And then the interact, or I would say the story behind the gameplay, I think that just enhances everything. You don't normally see a story like that for racing games, and drawing the comparison to Battlefront, I think that's perfect. Having that, the storyline behind Battlefront, it just made that game so much better. And then not to mention the ramifications it had on the rest of the Star Wars universe from a story perspective, that knowing that what you're doing kind of is in that area that's affecting, the Star Wars timeline, it makes the game even more fun, in my opinion. So I think with the interaction that you'll have in a story type of mode for that game, I think that's going to make it even better, because I haven't experienced a racing game like that. So I'm looking forward to it. Not knowing the timeline, you're exactly right. It's like, come on now. Those if Star Wars fans are anything, they're detail oriented, and they want to know all the details that they can of the content that they're consuming at the time. Yeah. If any of it is vague or is they're not sure, or it's not immediately identified, then it just goes into the ether, and you have frustrations, and then people start, trying to make up their own headcanon, and then, that could cause some strife within the fandom, which obviously we don't need. But to go back to just, we put all that aside. He needs to know Star Wars fans. He's making this product for Star Wars. Obviously, he's going to want to try to get, a casual fan, not real Star Wars, a racing fan that's not really a Star Wars fan, to buy this game, so it'll be a success. Yeah. But Star Wars fans want to know the little minutia, the details of what they're consuming. So I'm going to say that he probably just said that off the cuff. Maybe because it's what you said. It's like, what's happening here is not really going to have so much impact in the greater Star Wars universe. So really, it doesn't matter the timeline. But as far as like being able to identify the timeline itself, we're going to need to know that before the game, before we play it, right? We're going to need to know that for sure. So I'm hoping it was just just something that he said to get through the question. I'm sure as we get closer to the release of this game, we're going to have those details.
Yeah, no, I agree too. So I don't know. Again, it could just be he probably didn't mean anything by it, but I certainly latched onto it. I know other people latched onto it. And most of those other people are all people, like you said, they're either other creators or they're just in the minutia and weeds of Star Wars where they love to live and thrive. So it does matter to us though. But average gamer, probably not. They're probably going to get away with just saying it's after Return of the Jedi and leave it at that.
And leave it at that. Exactly. But us Star Wars, hardcore Star Wars fans know better.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, that's I think that was all I had on this one. Looks great. Pretty impressive. Still no release date just yet. I'm sure we'll get that soon, though. holiday release is probably a guarantee. I would hope so, because that's where they're going to cash in. So I don't
Right.
know. This looks, again, pretty far along in terms of development. So we might get something sooner. It could be a summer release, which, is another time to release games, because, you're going to have kids at home, over the summer, and they've got a lot of time. So possibly. But yeah, we'll provide more info when, we get a closer release date and all that as well. So, okay, let's move over let's talk Rogue One just for a little bit, because Rogue One is this year. I was like thinking about this too, like kind of crazy that this is the 10th anniversary of Rogue One, right? 2016 is when it was released. We've gone into 10th anniversary. Haven't heard a lot yet about how they would celebrate the 10th anniversary. They've done it with just about every other Star Wars movie, so it begs to argue that they would do something with this. But we got our first glimpse of what they're doing, at least on the publishing side.
Hey everyone, you've been listening to a preview of this Patreon exclusive episode. If you'd like to hear the full episode, as well as a huge back catalog of other Patreon exclusive material, head on over to patreon.com/CantinaCast and sign up for the We Are All the Republic tier at just $2 a month. That'll get you all of the audio episodes, or if video is your thing, please consider the This Is the Way tier at just $5 a month. There's also 2 higher tiers in Now Part of the Tribe and Delusions of Grandeur, which gets you a shout out at the start of every show, your name in the credits at the end, and more. Thank you so much to all of our Patreon members and all of our supporters, and may the Force be with you always.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.